What's good, guys? I hope y'all are having a great day. I recently got the opportunity to play in the 32nd annual Western Class Championships held in Irvine, California, a 5-round event. I ended up playing in the 3-day, which gives you that longer time control. I wanted to go into this with some time to think while not feeling rushed. And here in game 1, I'm going up against National Master David Ruppel. David's been in the game of chess for quite a while, and yeah, in this game here, we see the move of c4 from David going into the English opening. Y'all know me. I love the hippo. I love the modern defense in general. And here I play the move of g6, and against d4, I play bishop g7. By the way, today and the next 4 days, we're going to be going over each round, right? Day by day, each round in the recent tournament. And I hope that you guys get something out of it. And some of these games, I played the hippo, and some of them I didn't, including this one. I hope you get something out of my good moves and my mistakes, some opening ideas, as well as middle game and end game as well. Okay, the purpose of this series, the purpose of me showing you my games is to help you improve at the game of chess as I am looking to improve mine. So, okay, we have this move, bishop to g7. If something like knight to c3, it is an option to play d6, which is what I play in the Hippopotamus Defense. But against e4, there is this move of e5, which is a neo-modern defense type of idea. In the game, I see the move of e4, and recently I've noticed that a lot of my opponents are starting to prep for my hippo. And, you know, a big part of the reason I played the hippo for so long was that element of surprise, that element of throwing something at somebody that they've never seen before. But now that a bunch of people know I play the hippo, I'm trying to find some other lines, some other ideas to work with to throw some curveballs. And I'm a big fan of the hippo. I still play it when I can, and I still love to, you know, get that kind of game going. I mean, I played nothing but the hippos, white and black, all the way to the national master level. But here with the move of pawn to e4, I wasn't sure if David had prepped for my hippo or not, but I went, you know what, I'm going to play this move e5 with the neo-modern defense. I have a video on that. If you want to go check that out after this, I'll leave it in the description below. But e5 here, very fascinating option for black that really, you know, surprises a lot of players. In fact, David seemed surprised when I played this move of e5, and in a lot of ways, it just looks bad. It looks strange. Like, why are you playing e5 right after fianchettoing your bishop? But this is a sound move. Black has fighting chances here. In the game, d5 was played, but let's say white takes. If white does take, there's this move of knight to c6, looking to capture back with our knight. And of course, this move of f4 could be played, defending the pawn. In that case, d6 is the way to go here. And if white captures, we can take with the queen. And at the end of this, we're down a pawn. Very strange but interesting line. I was prepared to go into this. In fact, you could actually argue that black has a slight edge here. You know, in a lot of cases based on what white does. But we're down a pawn, and we have an isolated pawn on d6. So this doesn't seem great for us. But at the same time, white's pawns are extended. You have a pawn on e4, c4, and f4 with no development. We have 2 pieces developed, and we're going to start going after these pawns like crazy. For example, if knight c3, let's make more weaknesses. Let's capture on c3. Now you have isolated and double isolated pawns. We could play something like knight to f6. If you want to push your pawn to e5, we got 2 guys covering that spot. So that's not going to be a good option for you. And if you play bishop to d3 as an example, we can castle kingside, play rook e8. Even if white brings this knight to the defense of the e4 pawn, we just take it. Take the pawn right off, play bishop to f5, capture back. Here in this position, we have an isolated pawn. That's true. But they have double isolated pawns, an isolated pawn on a2. We have greater development. And I think black here is going to be the one pushing for a win. With the move e5, if white plays knight f3, I had another opponent in a previous neo-modern defense game play this move, and I have that covered on the channel as well. But here I ended up taking on d4 and then playing the move of knight to c6. If you want to learn more about the neo-modern, again, I'll leave that video down below. But this is such a fun option, especially for you hippo players that know your opponent has prepped for it. Maybe they're going to play a 4-pawn center. Maybe that 3-pawn center. In either case, this can be a good way to throw that curveball and take them out of their prep. Hardly anyone studies for the neo-modern defense because hardly anyone plays it. I didn't even know what the heck it was until not that long ago. But all right, I played this move e5. d5 is played here. And I now continue with d6. And this is a position that I love working with, looking to push this pawn to f5. Now, against the move knight c3, a5 is a good move here. The engine likes that. I considered playing this, but I went, you know what? I'm just going to play f5 right now. f5, start expanding. If I'm able to play f5 before knight f6, that's great. That way I don't got to bring the knight out, then, put it to h5 or e8 or something to then push the pawn. This is just faster. Play f5, then knight f6. A lot of times, guys, a neo-modern defense is going to turn into a King's Indian defense, but even better because you didn't put that knight out and then bring it back and then push the pawn, right? You were able to just push the pawn and then bring the knight out. Of course, your opponent needs to, make some mistakes if you're gonna argue that the position's better than the King's Indian, but it really can turn into a better King's Indian depending on your opponent's play. With the move of f5, e takes f5 is played, and I could have captured back with the bishop. The engine likes this. I don't. I just don't. I don't like this move for me, personally. It feels awkward. White has a great grasp on the e4 spot. We only got one pawn here. Our bishop is not very active. Maybe they're going to play knight ge2, knight g3, knight e4. Maybe they're going to play f4. It seems like our options in terms of pawn breaks, in terms of pawn moves that make an impact on our opponent's position, are a little bit limited. I mean, if we push our e pawn, they got great numbers on that. Our h and g pawns are really nothing but big old targets in my mind. I just don't like this line. So here, I capture with the g pawn. Of course, white could throw in a check, which is what they do. Here, I had prepped the king f8 option, and against bishop g5, I was preparing to play queen e8. And look, if white wants to take, we capture back. We're fine there. We're fine. Maybe a slight edge for white, but very small, if anything. And if something like queen to h4, trying to keep that queen active, keep that queen an attacking piece, you should be bringing your queen back. F3, E2, D1, right around that area. But in this case, we could play knight A6. Knight A6, and something like bishop D3, for example, F4 is an idea. And as you can see here, this queen on H4 is kind of limiting the activity or the potential spots for that bishop. We're looking at H6, trapping that piece. And where is this queen going to move? You can't move it without getting it captured off. So king f8 here. In the game here, we see knight to h3. I thought this was a little bit of a strange move, but it's not bad. And I actually was considering playing a5. Now, is a5 a good move? No. I realized, oh my gosh, knight g5 could be played. White is threatening mate. If I play something like knight h6, stopping that, knight e6 with check can be played. And yeah, I mean, if we take, white captures back. If queen f6, for example, going, hey, I want to attack the pawn, I want to defend my knight, right? Notice we can't move our knight there. If we move our knight anywhere, queen f7, that game is over. And yeah, if we do bring our queen to the f6 spot, white can capture. By the way, no, I didn't cover all this in the game. It just didn't look very fun to me, and it's not, because if the queen captures back, mate. If the bishop captures back, white has the beautiful move of e7 check. Resignable for the black side. I mean, that's just a great move in all aspects. I mean, look, if you want to take with the queen, we lose our bishop. If you want to move the king, they promote and create a second queen. If you take with the king, knight d5 check, the queen's going to fall. With knight g5, if we play queen e8, offering a trade, well, then we realize, oh wait, there's another threat, which is knight takes h7 with check. White could capture, white could play knight g5. That's one of the many things they had there, and white's just on the verge of winning this game. So with knight h3, I realized, okay, I got to stop that. Now, I don't want to play h6 because that's really weakening to my position, specifically the square of g6. In the game of chess, you got to push your pawns. I mean, you do, right? If you want to get your bishops, your rooks, your queen out, if you want to get your king castled, you got to move your pawns. However, it's important to realize that anytime you push a pawn, you are weakening a square. You are weakening a square. And when I've already pushed this f pawn up, g6 was weakened a little bit, but I still have that h7 pawn there. But if I play h6, oh wait, there's nothing defending g6, which as the game goes on, white could look to take advantage of. So in the game here, I play knight f6, kicking the queen. White could try queen h4, but at the same time, it's like, where's the queen going to go from that point? If you do decide to bring the bishop out to g5 or something, we have great defense on that knight. We can actually just keep developing. Maybe knight a6 is an option. If bishop h6, we can play queen e7 and look to capture back with our queen in that kind of instance. But knight f6 is played. Queen d1 is what David went with. I was a little bit surprised to see this move, but the engine actually doesn't mind it, and I now go with the move of a5 and knight a6. this knight here, looking towards that c5 spot. And a5 is a good move to throw in there. And in these types of positions, when you see white's d-pawn advance so far, because if you bring that knight to c5, and there's not a pawn on a5, white could potentially play b4. But here, we have a great grip on that spot. Knight g5 is played. I improved my knight, bishop e3, and I ended up playing h6. Now, I was expecting David to go with this move of knight to f3. Right, and there I was thinking, okay, I can bring my f knight into the action, right into the center of the board. If you want to take my knight on e4, I capture back. If you want to take my knight on c5, I capture back. And with these pawns side by side, I mean, we're wiping out half of the fourth rank. There's always possibilities there, specifically our bishop on g7 becoming a very aggressive and nasty piece for us. But with the move of h6, I see the move of bishop takes c5 in the game. And here, if we take with the d-pawn, our pawn structure is getting really weak. And that d-pawn is starting to really have some potential, play in the future. So I go, you know what? I'm going to take the knight. And I loved my position here. I loved it a lot, maybe a little too much. We do have an edge here, but it's not winning. Okay, and I actually wasn't even sure if this position was close or if black was just winning this. It felt like white couldn't do much here. I mean, if something like bishop to e3, we could play f4, kicking that bishop back. We could play bishop to f5. I mean, talk about space. Talk about white not feeling like they have a lot of activity in this kind of position. But we see the move bishop to a3. Now, if you think about it from the white perspective, what does white want to play? Let's just flip the board, right? What does white want to play here? c5. c5 is a move here that white could really look to pull off to break open that side of the board and go after our king. I mean, as you can see here, white's 3 pawns, they're not going to do much against our king side right now. Our king side is very strong, but c5, that's a move we got to be worried about. So I play the move now of b6. White's activity on the queen side is now to really put to a halt. If you play b4 and we capture, oh wait, you're not taking back with a pawn, you're taking back with your bishop. And now c5 is not possible because of that double pawn clamp. And if you push it now, there's a double pawn clamp. So c5 is just not a move that white's going to be able to pull off for a while. In the game, we have the move b3. And I ended up playing bishop to d7. Now, somehow, right, I felt a little bit rusty going into this game. I hadn't played in a chess tournament over the board for about 4 months. Obviously, I play all the time online and I coach a lot and all that kind of stuff. And that helps me, obviously, it helps me improve the game of chess. However, there is something to say about playing in an over-the-board tournament, getting kind of geared up for that, and not overlooking lines, because these games are very long. They're hours long. This game went over 4 hours in length, and a lot of thought and calculation was put into it. Somehow, I just missed the fact that white could castle queenside until later. And I was thinking, well, this king on e1 is just not active at all. Well, of course, we don't want it to be active because it's not the end game yet. But this king's not safe, right? It's not feeling great right now. If you castle kingside, that king's really not feeling safe. And I was just thinking, you know what? I'm going to play this slow. I'm going to play bishop to d7. I'm going to play queen e7. In reality, I should have played faster, right? Like here, I should play g4, maybe bishop h6, covering that diagonal. That would be great. That would prevent white from castling queenside. But in the game, I play queen e7, I play king f7, very slow moves here. And then I realized, oh wait, white can just castle queenside, and they should have here. David should have castled queenside. Instead, we see the move bishop to c1. Again, g4 is a good move. That's what I went with here. But of course, against bishop g5, I missed bishop h6. I thought about this, but then I was like, bishop h4, there's still a pin there. What do I do? Well, there's multiple moves that are good. Bishop f4, good option. e4, good option. By doing that, you're limiting the activity of the queen, the bishop. You're looking at the e5 square for your queen. If castling kingside, for example, because you can't go queenside, well, that's not great for white. Bishop f4, queen e5. I mean, this is a great game for us, and I'd love to potentially double up rooks on the h-file if I can. But in the game, I play the move rook h5. Not a huge mistake, but not the best move either. h4 is played here. I bring my other rook over. Now there's a big threat here. Let's say white just wastes a move. We take on g5. We capture on g5. We take on h1, and white's losing this position. They're down material. But with the move castling queenside, that rook is defended now. Now I find this move of e4 the best move in the position. By playing e4, again, you're limiting the activity of the queen. You're also giving your bishop a ton of activity here once this knight moves, and that's great, right? When we're playing chess, we want to make moves that limit our opponent's pieces in terms of their activity, in terms of their options, and we want to give our pieces more options. And that move e4 does exactly that. But with the move of g3, I ended up playing queen e5, which was a mistake. Okay, now I'm still better there. I still have an edge. At no point in this game, from this spot did I ever give up the lead in terms of giving, white the better game. But there were moments that I gave up my advantage or gave up most of it. Here I considered rook takes g5. It was the first game of the tournament, first game in months. And I was just like, I don't know if I want to play risky here, right? But rook takes g5 is actually just a beautiful idea. Now against h takes, I thought about knight h7, but then I was worried about rook h5, defending the pawn. Turns out we can just take it. And look, if you wanna fight for the file, we capture it. We play e3. We're down material. White has a rook. We have a piece and a pawn, but our pieces are way more active. Our bishop on g7 being our best piece right now. And look, if you want to play something like, let's just say bishop to d1 here, not taking the pawn, well, this queen's now overworked. Defending the knight, defending the pawn. Let's take the knight off the board. Let's capture on f2. We're looking to promote. If rook h1, we can play queen e5. We're sitting at even material now. Let's trade down. If you try to win the pawn, knight h3 happens, right? We want to put this knight into a spot where the bishop can't get access to it. That's why we didn't go to e4 there. And yeah, something like king to d2, we play f4. We just start advancing, and we have way too many pawns here for white to slow down. So we're winning now. And if white does take the pawn, we take with check, attacking the king, attacking the knight. If queen d2, a lot of moves here that are good. I personally, even though the engine likes queen takes g3, I personally would probably just take that, go with king g6, and now take the knight. The whole idea being you have knight e4, you're going to snatch off the pawn. You got two passed pawns here side by side, and great king activity. This is a one game for black. Quick announcement, y'all, that I'm giving out a 30% off discount code for all of my online courses in the month of April, including the Hippopotamus Defense, the Czech PIRC Defense, the PONZIANI opening, how to play knight c3 against the Scandinavian defense, and my new course, over 11 hours in length, how to play the modern Scandinavian defense as black against e4. This is meant to be a lifetime repertoire. If you're interested in any of those, go down to the link below in the description or the pinned comment, plug in the discount code CHESS25, and if you do so before the end of April, you will receive 30% off on your purchase, no matter what course or courses you decide to get. Let's head back to the video. But in the game, I didn't take that bishop. I decided to go with the more safe option in my mind, which was queen e5. I brought my queen back to e7. Now we see bishop g5 again. By white doing this, they're offering a draw, or at least it seems like it. We were just in this position. I played queen e5. They kicked us back. They went right back to where they were. I go, you know what? I'm going to play for a win here. Queen to e8. I did feel like my position was better here. White is really limited in their pawn breaks. a4 is played. I didn't think that was a great move for white. Now on the queen side, you really don't have any pawn breaks. If you play b4 ever, we just take. If you play c5, double pawn clamp. This pawn can't move. This pawn can't move without getting captured. White's pawns are frozen, and mine are too, for the most part. But potentially, especially if we can get rid of this bishop, f4 and e3 could be great moves. Now, a big question to ask yourself is how can you improve your pieces? How can you improve your pieces? Can my bishop on d7 improve? Not really. It's not the best piece ever, but it's not bad. It's defending light squares, which is great. It's looking at b5 just in case the knight ever wants to jump in there. Can this knight improve? Yes. This knight on e5 would be a lot more active. Now, again, I should just capture on g5, play knight h7, go after that pawn on g5. We have a much better game because of that amazing bishop on g7 coming out of the modern defense. However, here I go with trying to get my knight to e5. So I go with 1, 2, and 3. Looking at that e5 spot, looking at f4. White captures, I take back. And then here with the move of queen to d2, knight e5 could be played. That's a good option, but I ended up going, you know what, I'm just going to put my queen there. My knight defends it, and the queen is really putting good pressure on that knight on c3. Queen d4 is played, and the engine here wants queen takes d4, king f6, and sacrificing the knight on h4. I thought about this. I thought about doing this. It seemed like a very active game. I just wasn't sure. It's like, why would I play risky in a game like this where I know I have an edge? I'm not sure exactly how this would work out. But, you know, if you look at this position, this f-pawn can't move. If you ever move it, you're going to lose it. And, you know, there's good ways for us to continue adding more pressure in this kind of position. So this is better for black, but I ended up going, you know what, I'm going to play rook to e8. I still really like this for black, you know, looking to guard that queen. Rook he1 is played. I played king f7, getting out of the pin. After bishop to f1, I ended up capturing off the queen and now bringing my knight into the e5 spot. Now the threat here is knight f3, forking both of those rooks. Bishop g2 is one move that David could have tried, but then here knight d3. And there's a fork again. If you take, I capture back, and we're up the exchange. And at the end of this, sure, you can go for the d3 pawn, but now we're going to play aggressively. I love f4 here, breaking the position open, looking at that pawn on g3. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of possibilities here. And by the way, if white does take, h4 just got weakened, so we can just snatch that pawn right off. So playing f4, you're not really sacrificing anything. It's more offering a trade. With knight e5, if something like rook d1, that's not a fork anymore, but that is us just trapping this rook. You can't go back to d1 now because the other rook took that spot. And yeah, I mean, bishop e2 is a good option. I was expecting rook d to d1, but in the game here, we see the move of rook to e2. I now throw in a check. I play rook h back to h8, right? I want to get my rook on e8 some support there. And I now play knight to c5, threatening b3. White defends it in the game. And here I play the move of king to g6. Good move. The engine likes it. The engine also likes f4, breaking this position open. Again, you can't take, right? We're looking at e3 potentially at some point. Not right now because that would be check. But f4, it puts a lot of pressure on white. If you take, we could take on h4, but it's important to ask yourself, wait, do I have to take this pawn right away? Or can I wait? And here we can wait. We can. Now, sometimes you see a pawn that's hanging, you take it, even if you can take it later. That's fine. But here we have a special opportunity to play either e3, breaking the game open, or bishop f5, and then e3. This is great for us. We're trying to activate our pieces. We're playing for a win here. If white takes, we capture right back. h4 is still hanging. It's still hanging. And if you play rook h2, trying to guard it, we push to g3. We push to g3. We play actively here. I mean, you got a lot of weaknesses. Something like rook back. Let's play rook f3. We're looking at rook f2 and g2. This is an active game for us, right? So f4 is one way to play that. Another move here that you could play is just going ham to play e3. And I was actually worried not about taking this, because in that case the rook flies in, we're eyeing the knight, we're eyeing g3. I mean, this is disastrous for white in all types of ways. I was worried about rook e2. It's like, gosh, our pawn on e3 is attacked twice. If we take on f2, now white takes, and we can't just play rook e3 because a rook takes g4. Now, of course, the engine here still says we're better because of king e8. I missed this idea. Beautiful move, actually, because now we're threatening that rook. And let's say you play something like rook to g5. We take on c3. Right, by playing rook g5, you kept defense on that pawn, but now we're going to play knight e4 with check, snatch off that rook. We're crushing this position. But okay, right here, you know, according to the engine, we shouldn't even play rook e3. We should just bring our king over to g7. We're still looking at that e3 spot, and if you stop us from going into there, we can take, bring our other rook over. How are you going to stop us from playing rook to e3? If you play knight d1, okay, you stopped it, but we just take the bishop. If you play king to d2, you just lost the b3 pawn. You just lost it. So, you know, there's a lot of ways to play this position. I ended up playing king g6, more of the slow burn approach. When I'm playing over the board chess, I'm not taking risks. I don't have to usually, unless I'm very sure that it's a good idea. Here I play king g6, just going, you know what, now e3, if that's played. I don't got to be worried about any types of pins, and I'm just putting my king into a slightly better spot. Knight e2 is played. Here I made the biggest mistake of the game, and that is knight to d3. Bad move. Now it's even. Now white could play for a draw. I should just play e3 here. And if knight f4 check, king h6, king f6, either way, at the end of this, you know, if white wants to take on e3, we'll take back. If rook e2, we can capture. We got the e4 spot available. We're playing active chess. But I play knight d3. What I missed here was that the rook could take on d3. In my head, I was thinking, oh, if the knight moves, to defend that pawn on f2 with the rook, because I was looking at that pawn, well, knight e1. I jumped to f3. We're winning this position. If you check, I take. I then win the pawn on f4. Again, I missed that white could take this. And we're up material. However, it's impossible for black to break through this. If white just waits, if white just sits here, we really can't break through. We just can't. I mean, for example, rook e4 here, right? Rook e4, that's what I played. That's the engine move. But white could just play king d2. If we bring our other rook over, looking to activate, white puts us into check. If we move our king, the knight goes back. The knight could go to c3 here if we've tried to play c6, breaking the game open. I mean, that doesn't even work because white could take, rook takes d6 with check. Now white might be fighting for a win. So really what white needs to do here is just sit. This bishop can't improve. White's pawns are covering so many light squares. And, you know, they got a really solid pawn chain in one sense on, you know, on the queen side of the board, because if this B pawn doesn't fall off, the bishop can't target any other pawns, and this bishop is locked in by the pawn on f5 and g4. White has good control over the f4 spot, but here in the game we have the move f3. Now this allows me to take. Now we're breaking the game open. Now there's more files, diagonals and stuff open. White should not be playing for a win here. White should just be sitting there and going, you know what, there's really nothing that black can do. Now in the game here, I played the move of king h5. Once knight f4 was played, I realized that king h5 was a mistake. I was planning on playing king g4, but then I realized, oh gosh, rook c3, bishop h3 is a checkmate threat. I could take on h4, and if the g-pawn takes, that's not a good idea because the rook captures back. h4 is attacked and hanging. The bishop is attacked and hanging. But white could throw in a check first, and then take on h4. Now, something like king to d2, defending the bishop, h5, rook h3. This is not good for us. We don't want to play for a draw here. We want to play for a win. So I play king h6. Right? Thankfully, here, you know, I play king h6. I don't go into the g4 spot. And I think it's important in chess to realize, even in the middle of a game, when you made a mistake. When I was in the game, I realized, oh gosh, king h5 wasn't that great. I could have just played king h6. But I'm not going to let my pride get the best of me and go for a plan that I know is bad. Right? In fact, I remember watching a video as a kid. Roman Dinciashvili was covering a game by a GM who made a bad move, but then just kind of stuck to it because probably their pride got in the way. I don't want my pride to get in the way when I'm playing chess. Look, I made a mistake. Fine. I'm going back to h6. Let's keep this thing rolling. Bishop d3. I drop my rook back to e5. Now, if something like king to d2, we could activate our rook. And white again, knight g2. White should just sit there. If we bring our rook to g, okay, knight f4. It's very hard, if not impossible, for black to break through this. But here white plays knight to e6. Again, allowing the position to break open. White doesn't want an open position. White should want this closed. Here I take on e6. I capture again. And now bishop takes f5 is played. Now this is a little bit of a scary position because white does have connected passed pawns on the h and g files. But I go with the move rook to e2 check. And we are okay here. Double up rooks. g4 is played. I play rook h2. Let's just say that we saw the move g5, which in the game we saw h5. Here, these pawns just can't advance very far because this is a bishop. This isn't a knight. We play king h5. If the pawn pushes king h6, can the bishop help that pawn push? No. It can't. We're looking at that pawn on h4. If white defends it, we could activate our other rook. If you try to use your rook to help out, we just offer a trade. And trading there isn't good for white at all. So with the move of rook h2, h5 is played. I now play king g5. Great dark square control there. This pawn cannot move. This pawn cannot move. And now it's time to play actively with the rooks. Bishop to d7 is played. I ended up going with the move of rook to e5. Rook to e5. Now rook e7 here, you got to be careful because a rook f5 would check. We don't want to take that pawn. I would probably look at this move king to h4 as the best move. Okay, king h4 is what the engine likes. Now, in terms of what I would initially look at, I'd probably look at king h6, but taking on g4 is not good because a rook f7 would check. We're going to lose our rook, right? Of course, we want to get something for it, but at the end of this, we have a dead draw. So I go with the move rook e5. I don't want that rook f5 move to happen without me being able to just take the rook right off. Bishop c8 is played. I play rook b2, going after that pawn. White defends it. I go back. I'm just trying to put pressure on white. I'm trying to see if white's going to make a mistake here. Rook h3 is played. I now play rook e to e2. Now, let's just say white decided to push this pawn to h6. This is scary until you realize that black can go to h2. If the rook moves, thanks for the pawn. If the rook takes, we're still going to say thanks for the pawn. So here white goes, you know what, I'm not going to push the pawn. I'm going to play bishop to f5. I now play rook h2. And if white decided to take, we capture back. Now, it is true that we really can't sacrifice our rook and get this material because white's king is closer to our side of the board. However, let's just say we see a move like bishop to d7. We can throw in a check, king f4, and we can start bringing our king over there. You cannot push this pawn without it getting captured. You cannot push this pawn without losing h5 at the current moment, right? You just can't. And, you know, something like king to b2, king to d4 can be played. If bishop g6, looking to help that pawn, rook h4. Again, attacking the pawn. If you want to push it, if you want to push this guy, rook g4. Rook g4. We're good. Right? That's one way to play it. Of course, you could also, you know, throw in some checks in there. Maybe play king f4 as well. That's an easy way here. But I'm just talking about how the rook can stop these pawns. The bishop is just not that helpful in these kind of positions. So, again, king e5 here. I can play actively with king d4, throw in a check, go to c3, start taking off pawns. We're winning here. So here white avoids that by playing rook to f3. I now play c5, not the engine move, but here I'm trying to limit the activity of that king. I now play rook to e1. Bishop f5 is played here, and I find rook to c1 will check. You only got one good move. Blocking with the bishop's obviously terrible. And king d3 is played, but I now play rook b2. Rook b2, going after that guy. White plays king e4, defending it, but we now have the move of rook to d1. Now, what is this threatening? It's threatening rook d4, in which case the king has to go back. We snatch off a pawn. Let's say white stops this with rook e3. That's what I was expecting, but I was planning to play rook f2. Threatening mate on f4. Threatening mate on d4. We have a lot of activity here. Black is winning this position, but in the game rook h3 is played. I play rook d4, and here white resigns because whether you move the king to f3 or e3, we take on b3 or check. Even if you defend that rook, we're just going to keep rolling here. Rook to d2. And at the end of this, that's not mate because of that bishop, but we could take off the rook, and this is obviously winning. I hope you enjoyed this one, and I will see y'all in tomorrow's video covering round 2. To finish out, I wanted to give a big shout out to my Patreon community, specifically Walter, Rob, Steve, Rob, Ray, and Roger, and the rest of my Patreon community. Thank you guys for your support. If you haven't checked out the Patreon already, there are some exclusive benefits that you gain by becoming a member. I look forward to seeing you over there, and I'll see y'all in the next video. Peace.